All right. So this is Brianna. I think you met Enrique last time when we first saw you. How are we doing this week?
We're doing okay. He's getting much better with the muzzle
Okay.
and the muzzle training. He's actually okay with having Bill in the house. But when we go for walks, about 10 minutes, then he wants it off. But
Okay.
in the
Does he
beginning,
really
would-
fight it, or does he get over it?
Yeah.
Okay. So keep doing what you're doing. So we always try to do things through counter conditioning, which is the food stuff.
Yeah.
More often than not, in my experience, we end up doing what I call force conditioning, which is through the remote. And you do it as you're walking, but we can work on that when we muzzle them and I'm actually with you.
Okay.
But there's a solution to that to make them accept it, but just keep doing the food stuff.
Okay.
And I sent you videos on the e-commerce. Did you receive
Yes, I
those?
have it. I turned it on, put it on, made sure it fit and everything.
Okay, excellent.
Got that with me.
So go ahead and get them set up here, and we'll go ahead and get started. We have a little chair here if you want to put some things down. And we have hand sanitizer available as well.
Yes, I will put that.
I'll put on the chair. No, you're fine. I put on the chair instead of putting on the stuff. Okay. And it's powered on?
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead and bring Buddy, right?
Yes.
And bring Buddy over here. And if we need to provoke the activity or anything, because it's humans and dogs, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I can bring a dog out and stuff. So I'm going to coach you through all this stuff. So now what we want to find is Buddy's working level. So there's 3 levels. We have connection, perception, and working. Okay. Connection is when you see the twitch, but it's not phasing Buddy. So like if he's staring at a dog and you see the twitch, right? He's still staring, he's not phased by it. So that's connection, but nothing going on here. Perception is when you see the twitch, you kind of see him kind of divert his attention, but it's like not too concerning. Then working level is like, oh, what was that? Okay. And we always want to find that working level, which may change according to environment. So here, because we're not at Oz, it might be a little bit lower. It's okay. What that means is when you go to your, when you go home and you start implementing things at home, you're just gonna have to find the working level in your environment. And like, let's say here today, let's say for instance it's like 15, and everything's perfect on 15. Then when you go home, you start at 10, you work your way up, and you can find yourself at 35 before you see it phasing out. That's what you would operate at. Okay. As you go along, that number may dip because as he starts to calm down, he becomes more receptive. And you're doing less because we're not seeing that reactivity anymore because he's not constantly under stress. That number may stay static, and sometimes the number goes up. There is no guaranteed answer, but there's always an answer, so whether or not the owner is going to accept it. Okay? So what we're going to do here is, what is your dial set at?
At the moment, it's at 0.
Okay, so we're going to go to 10. That's, 8, 10 is kind of right where dogs will feel it. And if you land on like 9 or 11 or something like that, you're fine. We just don't want to be at like 30, okay? So we're going to look at Buddy here. And when I say tap, you're going to press that bumping button exactly, right? So tap, 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 tap. Okay, so I think I see the twitch. Ready to go to 13. And tap, tap, tap. Right, so you see how now there's like a twitch and a shake of the head?
Yeah.
Let's go to 15. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so a little bit of a response, but not too concerning quite yet. So we're going to go to 17. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So you see how he's moving a bit more now? And here you actually don't want to pet him.
Sorry.
It's okay. Because he felt something that made him uncomfortable, so then he starts seeking comfort. If you pet him, your intention is either to console or just as force of habit. People just pet their dogs, right? But what happens is he's like, Mom, I don't like that, right? I don't know what to do. And when you pet him, you're essentially saying you should feel the way you do about this. Because petting is reinforcement, okay? So like when dogs are lunging at other dogs, people will sometimes stop to pet them to calm them down. But for the dog, they're saying, yes, keep barking at the other dog, okay? So that's why we remove any kind of affection and stuff to make it easier on the owner, because they'll either reward the wrong thing, and then we start to implement it when we see the stuff that we do want, right? So like let's say a dog passes and he doesn't bark, you could then pet him because that was a response that we wanted, okay? So this exercise is super simple. We're gonna start at 17. Is what we're gonna do here is we're gonna teach Buddy to walk at your left, okay? So this is the foundation for everything that we're gonna be doing, okay? So for reactivity, and like just even this kind of constant whining and stuff, we need to discipline him to settle those nerves. But like technically here, he's not doing anything bad. He's just really on edge, right? So we're gonna do something not related, like the leash walking, to give him something to focus on, but it allows us to discipline him outside of this, and he doesn't see it as like, oh my God, like why you touch me, I'm stressed because I don't know what the environment is, because it's completely not related, okay? But they can overlap. So here, what we're gonna do, to get Buddy to walk at your left, you're gonna be moving forward, and he's probably gonna pass you, is you're gonna make an immediate 180 turn to your right, okay? So if he passes, you're just gonna go like this, and then he passes, and you're gonna go like this, just straight back. So if you're on a sidewalk, you would stay within the sidewalk. When you're doing this, so like you'll hear me say turn, which means to do this, but then you're also gonna be tapping at the same time, okay? So Buddy would go off, I would say turn, you would 180, and as you're moving, I'm gonna say tap, 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 and you would keep going until eventually Buddy would come up to your left leg, then you would stop tapping, and he's probably gonna pass, so then you would turn, tap, 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 back to your side, turn, tap, 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 back to your side. We're gonna keep repeating that process, okay? When you do this, we do wanna give Buddy some slack, and I'm gonna suggest you switch your remote to your right hand and your leash to your left hand. There you go. And just relax. Good. So you see how your leash is slack there? It's going to remove it off of his head there and just let it go slack again. Good. So you're going to take up just like 3 inches. There you go. So you see the loop there? You see how it's kind of by his armpit? That's typically like a good height. So it's enough slack that Buddy can make mistakes, but not too much slack that he starts to overstep the leash, because then you're constantly adjusting him with the leash, okay? Right. Now, very important that you're relaxed when you're doing this. I ideally don't want to use physical tension. I want to use that remote to get him to do what I need him to do. What you might find is he's going to get frustrated because he's already on edge. And we're adding in another stressor and a physical stressor, okay? So if he starts to jump on you, you'll just keep moving, and you can pull away and tap until he removes himself, but you keep your movement. Okay, it's very important that you're always moving. People tend to stop, because you're working on a bunch of things at once. But if you stop, it allows him to get deeper into the behavior of jumping on you. Whereas if he's trying to jump on you and walk at the same time, he can only do one or the other. So it makes it more difficult, that he'll settle down, and then the tapping stops because he stopped the jumping, and now just keep moving forward. And then if you were to pass him, you would turn, tap, to bring them back to your side again. Okay? Questions for me yet?
Not yet.
So what you're going to do is go ahead and just step over so that he's to your left. Turn to your right now. There you go. Now forward. Okay, we're going to start now, so I'll coach through everything here, okay? So forward, tap. Tap. Turn. Tap. Tap. Turn. Tap. 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 Keep forward. Tap. 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 Good. Turn. Tap. Tap. Keep your arm relaxed. There you go. Turn. Tap. 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 Pull to your left here. Tap. 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 There you go. And then turn. You're good. Now relax. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap. Good. Relax. Turn. Tap. Tap. There you go. And relax. Tap. Forward. You're good. Tap forward. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap. Good. Relax. Yep. Go ahead and turn. You're good. Forward. Tap. 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 There you go. Good. Turn. Tap. Good. Very good. Keep forward. Tap. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. 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 Good. Relax. Slow turn here. Keep forward. Tap. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap. You got it. Good. Turn. Tap. Good. Good. Slow turn here. Keep forward. Tap. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap. Now relax. Slow down here. We're going to stop. We're going to go to, okay, we're going to go to 19. You're at 17, correct? Yeah. You're doing good, by the way. Okay. This is all part of the process.
Yep.
Forward. Relax. Turn. Tap. Good. Keep forward. Keep relaxed. Good job. Tap forward. Tap forward. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Good. Good. Now slow turn here. Forward. Good. Left. Turn. Tap. Good. Slow turn. Keep forward. Turn. Tap. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Good. Turn. Keep that on the left. On the left. There you go. Turn. Tap. Good. Relax that arm. Turn again. Tap. Good. Turn again. Tap. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Relax. Good. Keep forward. Keep forward. Good. Slow turn. Good. Turn. Tap. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap. Good. Relax. Good. Slow turn. Keep forward. Good. Turn. Tap. Tap. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Good. You're good. Slow turn here. Complete it. Then pull to your left. Yep. Tap. Tap. You got it. Good. Keep forward. Tap forward. Good. Turn. Good. Relax that arm. Tap forward. Tap forward. Good. Tap. Yep. Pull to your left. Tap. Excellent. Relax. Good. Slow turn. Good. Now slow walk here. Turn. Tap. 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 Good. Slow turn. Slow walk. Keep forward. Tap. 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 Slow walk. Turn. Tap. Tap. Slow turn. slower, keep forward, tap, tap, slower, keep forward, tap, 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 slower. Go ahead and stop right there. Better.
Already, yeah.
Okay? So here, all that resistance he's giving you is fueled by all the stress that he feels, for whatever reason, on that daily basis. Okay? So when we see the resistance, people tend to go, stop. Right? When you do that, you're reinforcing the anxiety, the nervousness, the fear, whatever it is that's causing him to resist. So fear, anxiety, nervousness, all that's healthy. Okay, it's what keeps us alive, right? So if you're going to an interview, for humans it's different now, but going back to before civilization or whatever, these are instincts that would cause us to alter our behaviors so that we would stay alive, okay? But for him, it's irrational. Does that make sense? Because you just go outside and everything, right? Now the world is not supposed to be what it is today. It's not supposed to be buildings, it's not supposed to be cars and planes and things like that. It's meant to be nature, right? So for some dogs, because it's not nature anymore and it's city and it's busy and stuff, it just causes a lot of stress. And then for us, because we're desensitized and we know what these things are, we don't really perceive that as energy. I perceive it as energy. So like here, like it's quiet, right? But if we remember when we were at Oz and you heard the cars and the dogs and everything like that, the energy was greater. So sound, light, all that stuff is energy to a dog. So when he's over threshold, that's where all that other stuff is coming from. Okay, because he already comes out and he's like, oh my God, I'm on edge already, right? So what we're doing here is when you're moving with him, he's going, I don't want to move because I don't know what's going on here, is if we stop, that fearfulness, whatever, gets reinforced. Okay? So it sounds bad, when I say we're breaking these behaviors or whatever to people, but they're not thinking the way I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm breaking this pattern, so it's not, because that's what it is. It's I get anxious or nervous and I bark and I lunge and I puff and I do all these things, right? So earlier he kept making this like puckering sound. I don't know if you remember, like he wanted to bark but he wasn't barking, but now, right? So the difference is earlier that sound he was making was because for him, I'm stressed, I want to bark. Right, and he's kind of stuck in limbo. Here, now he's like, holy crap, like what just happened? Like I couldn't resist, I had to move. It was very strict, there was consequence, there was physicality behind it, right? So now his brain, this is venting stress and relaxation, okay? I want to see this, okay? So for him, that energy has to come out somewhere, okay? So I'm not saying you can't express these things. I'm saying you can express those things in certain ways. Okay? So I have an anxious case that I'm working with right now. Same thing, nervous, anxious, reactive. Okay? And Enrique's actually worked with her. Her number was 80, and she was stuck, and the dog kept lunging and barking and being reactive, and I kept telling her, go higher, go higher, go higher. And then finally she went to 115, and everything she said has changed, like completely since doing that, right? And she's like, he's so much calmer. He's not being reactive. I feel so much comfortable walking him now because she finally saw him settle. But it took an extreme to get it to happen, right? And he's obviously a bigger dog, but it could happen even for a dog like this because it's not the size of the dog, but the size of the fear, the anxiety, the stress that he's feeling. And that's what people do. That's why I was like, for you, I was like, yes, he's small, but I would account for the behavior and go with
Little
more
dog,
power.
big anxiety.
Exactly, right? So I'd rather have it not need it than need it not have it type of deal. So here, now you're starting to see how he's picking back up again, right? Give a tap here. Tap. Tap. Let's go to, you're at 18?
19.
You're at 19, let's go to 22. And tap. Tap, tap, tap. Let's go to 25. Tap, tap, tap. 28. Tap, tap. Okay. So what we're doing here, I'm going to let him have this for now. Listen. You hear that difference? What's the difference?
Much less quieter, calmer,
What were you hearing before?
much more panting.
There was a heavy panting, right? And then I pointed out it was shifting. When I pointed out it was shifting, what started to change?
Just getting a bit around.
You did get up, you started looking around. Did you hear the sound that he was making?
It's like a,
Yeah, exactly that sound, right? And I said, now he's starting to trigger again.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's starting to come back. So what we did was we used this to disrupt that pattern. Okay, so he was settled for 2-3 minutes, and then he's like, okay, I'm feeling it again. So instead of going walk, move again, I go, now we're gonna just disagree with it. Okay, so with e-collar, it allows us to do two things. It allows us to teach behaviors, sit, stay down, come, place, heel, and it allows us to stop behaviors, because it's an aversive. Okay, aversives are meant to stop things, but we can also use them as a motivator. Okay, so like when you're doing all this stuff here, the communication was when he would pass you and you would turn and tap, as you were saying, you're going the wrong way. So then when he would turn around and he'd see you going that way and he'd catch up, he's like, oh man, I'm going the wrong way, right? And then he'd pass you again and he starts feeling the remote. Then he turns like, mom's going that way. And he would catch up and it would stop. And he started learning, hey, when I'm here, because when you'd come to your right, you would pull to your left, right? And you're keeping him in this pocket. Okay, so we were teaching him something. We were putting pressure on whenever, tap, go back down. You're going to go down. You're going to go down to 18. Because that was a bigger response. Okay, is you're telling him, that's the sound.
Yeah.
Wait a moment. Yep. Just wait. Better. Okay. So you're saying when he was here, wrong, right? Over here, wrong, right? Okay. And you're making it wrong by applying a negative when he's in the incorrect areas. Okay. So you can't explain to him like, hey buddy, this is where you want to be. Like I could tell, Enrique sit in that specific chair. And he was like, okay, and he just does it, right? Dogs aren't capable of that. So you have to use negative to remove these options. And he's like, my only option is here, okay? So we're starting to teach him how this turns on, how it turns off. And he's like, it turns on if I'm anywhere but here, in this kind of context, okay? So then he starts to learn that it does go away. So then here, we're starting to use it now as an aversive, which is, I don't like what you're doing, stop that, okay? So he started to escalate again. And instead of ignoring it, because I know where it's going to go, I said, tap. He tapped on 28. He gave a really big response. Then he put his butt down. And I said, that's too much power. We go down to 18. He started to escalate again. I said, tap. And then we waited. Right, and then he kept doing it, and then we tapped one more time, and then we waited. And then we went back to settle. Okay? So another dog would come in, if they cared about this, would come in and go like, I don't like your energy. Boom. Stop it. There's nothing to be anxious about. Right?
Yeah.
But he's not being rational because for whatever reason, he's just emotionally, that's how he's wired. Okay? So you have to be his rationale. And you do that through physicality. And every dog's number is different. And that's why I was telling them, don't worry about the number, worry about the behavior that you get. Our intention is not to hurt. Because people ask like, if it's an aversive and it's physical and stuff, what differentiates abuse between this, whatever. I'm like, well, I'm not doing it for no reason. Right? So like the dog I spoke about earlier, we had to go to 115 for the dog to stop the behavior. Here, at this particular moment, we're only at 18. Okay? So you're just being logical. Once you are consistent and this is being practiced on a regular basis, you may find that you don't even need to address them. He'll start to self-regulate. Okay? But that's where, the leash walking, everybody has to walk their dog essentially, right? So it gives you something that you do every day to practice. And then when you expose them, It's no longer like, I can't control you, so he's going unaddressed with all his lunging and barking. Now you have something to disrupt it. I go, that's not allowed now. So he goes, man, I'm at Home Depot. There's so much crap going on, and I really want to bark, but I know if I bark, something will happen. What happens if I don't do anything? Nothing. You know, so that's how their brains work. Does that make sense? Okay, very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that same exercise again. We're going to repeat it a few times. We're going to stay at the 18, and I'm going to have you, instead of moving forward, you can just pivot off to your right here, okay? And tap forward, switch, pull to your left, tap. Good, and relax. Keep forward. Good job. And slow turn. And forward. Turn. Tap. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. 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 Turn. Turn. Tap. You got it. And relax. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap. Good. And relax. Let's go to 21. So here, what you're looking for when I'm pulling you to turn is when he's getting ahead of you. Okay. His right shoulder should be parallel to your left leg. That's your visual. That's your visual alignment. Okay. So go ahead and stand like this, and then you're going to just. Gotcha. There you go. And relax. Good. Turn. Tap. Good job. Turn. Tap. Forward. Yep. Good. Keep careful. Turn. And relax that arm. Turn. Tap. Good. You got it. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap. Good. And relax. Turn. Tap. Good. Keep forward. Keep forward. There he goes. Turn. Tap. Tap. Good. There it is. Very good. Keep forward. Left, tap, yep, tap. Slow turn. Tap forward. There you go. Tap forward. There you go. Good. Excellent. Keep forward. There you go. Slow. Yep, you're good. And turn. Tap. Tap. Good. Forward. Good. Tap forward. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Good. Slow turn. Keep forward, good. Keep forward. Now slow walk. Turn. Tap. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap. You got it. Good. Keep forward, then slow turn. Good. Slow walk. Keep forward. There you go. Keep forward. Turn. Tap. It's okay. Pull to your left. Tap. Tap, tap, tap. You got it. Good. Slow turn. You're okay. You got it. Good. Forward. Tap. Good. Pull to your left. Tap. 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 Good. Slow walk here. And stop. Okay. So you see, like right now, how he's facing off from you, and earlier he was in tight. It's because now he's getting a little confused. It's normal. The reason why you're having a harder time is because of the harness. Okay, now I know it's the trachea thing, so I'm not worried about it because he's a smaller dog. But when you have the leash on the collar, you have more immediate leverage to just pull him aside, whereas now you're going at the base of his body, so he has more, it gives him more leverage. Okay, I'm going to have you just take up maybe about 4 inches of slack here. That's pretty good. And we're going to try that again. What I'm looking for is, he seems to be going fine that direction, but when you turn this way is when he really starts to forge ahead. On this next run, I'm going to not say so much, and I'm going to see if you can just, on your own, recognize when you need to correct them, because it's going to be super important, of course, when you're off training. So the key thing to remember, if he pulls to your right, you just keep forward, pull to your left, tap. Okay. If he gets ahead, I'm going to make one more change here is, you're making the right turns, but you're making more so rounded turns. You're going more like this. Yeah. And what you want to do is just 180 back. Okay? Sometimes when you turn, he passes, and I'll tell you keep forward, is because he'll pass and I can see him slow down. which means he knows he's overshooting, so that if you keep going, he ends up syncing up with you, okay? So that one's a little bit trickier to recognize, but you can give him a moment to see, is he gonna keep up with me? Otherwise, if he's not, he's gonna keep up here, okay? So again, your general rule is that right shoulder in line with that left leg, okay? And you can just go back and forth here as much as you need to. There were some times where I was saying slow turn. Do you know why I was saying slow turn? Because going that way seemed to be easier for him, is when you start approaching the wall, doing the slower turn allows for him to catch on to what you're doing, because it's not abrupt. So the abrupt turns are when he is just gone. He's not paying attention. Okay, there's no point in going slow. But when he is being mindful, it would only be fair to communicate with him, like, hey buddy, I'm changing directions non-verbally, right? And he sees this movement where you're slowing down and he sees you and he's like, oh, we must be going this way now. And he should pick up with you, no problem. Okay? Questions? All right, whenever you're ready. Good. Was there a tap there? And what else do you want to do? Turn. You want to turn, okay? Good. Better. Good turn. Now move slower here. Good. Much better. Good job. And keep that slow pace. There you go. Good. Good turn. And you're going to walk slower here. And come to a stop. Now, what you're going to do is light pressure forward. Yep. 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 Good. See how he comes into that leg? So now he's getting the reference point. Okay. So, better. Your turns are good. Obviously, correcting from the right side to the left side, very simple. On the return, he was getting ahead of you. He was probably like 3 or 4 inches ahead, but not until it became really obvious that the turn happened. So it was not even an inch. Okay, right? Like exactly like that. Okay. Now it's not going to be like that forever. Okay, because right now he's being extra cautious because it's so much discipline. But then as the discipline starts to let up because he's doing the correct thing, we start to go off the remote, and you start to see him find a balance of like, I don't need to be this tight to my owner's leg. He just needs to be in sync with you. And the general rule is about 6 inches beside you. Anything more like that of that than is too far, in my opinion. So he shouldn't be ahead of you too far this way, lagging behind. You know, if it's a hot day or whatever, he lags a bit, I get it, but still, he should still keep within that 6-inch rule anywhere but forward, okay? Questions so far about this? Would you grab dude, Enrique? So we're gonna bring in a dog, and we're gonna see how he takes the situation. I don't suspect he's gonna do anything, because now he's more worried about you than he's worried about what's going on in the environment. And that's the theory here, because he's more stressed about you, because now you're physical. When I'm not here to mom, things happen, okay? That it should override everything else. The tricky part's gonna be, what is that number gonna be in the real world, okay? So my general rule of thumb is if I don't see a change within 3 taps or 3 corrections, I raise it, okay? So what that means is, right now when he was locked up and I said tap, 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 by that 3rd, 4th tap, he pushed forward and came in. So he did it within that time frame. Had he not moved, I would have said bump it. And then you went tap, tap, tap. No response, bump it, okay? For a guy his size, I go in jumps of 2 to 3. Don't worry too much about like the specifics, but it'll just give you frame of reference, okay? So here we're gonna hold for a second and tap, tap. Right, so he did it within that 3 tap rule. And what number are we at right now?
21.
Okay, so now that we're gonna close the gap a bit, what I'm gonna have you do is go to shorten that leash a little bit more. Okay, so when we do this, for you, for this week, if you see reactivity, it's okay, because you're trying to figure out what the levels are. But if you see a situation coming where you're like, I feel like he's gonna bark at this, what you want to do is, if you're on the sidewalk, is step aside if you can, either to the curb of the sidewalk or the grass, but face the stimulus, okay? Don't try to hide behind the car, don't try to cover his eyes, don't pick him up, and you're gonna shorten your leash, okay? Shortening the leash is if he lunges, he has less range of motion, okay? And then I have a nice good grip, and then your concern is, or your responsibility is Buddy, okay? So I have Buddy here, and I can see Enrique with Dude right there, right? So when they're walking, I'm looking for shifts in his behavior. Right now he's panting, okay? So let's say he's panting, and all of a sudden his mouth closes and becomes very quiet. That's tension, okay? That's something is happening now that I'm not too sure about. Okay, so it's nothing bad, you wouldn't remote that. What I care about is what happens next. If he starts panting again and lets it go, then that tells us he was stressed for a second, but he's fine with it. If he closes his mouth and starts lunging and barking, then I go, where did he start lunging and barking? Because he may have a threshold. So he could be fine here, right? And as that person's walking, you might find here all the way to about here creates a window that he's not comfortable with. And that's where the lunging and barking happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're trying to figure out where is your threshold, where is your breaking point and stuff, so that the next time it happens, you already know where to expect it, and you're ready with the remote to correct it, okay? So what we're gonna do here is I'm fine with him sitting where he's at. Enrique's gonna come, and I'm gonna have you come from the front here, Enrique, and just pass. So we're listening for that breathing. See how he's watching. He's licking his lips, signs of stress. So Enrique is currently at about 15 feet, and he's slowly going to close that gap, okay? This is fine. Yep, so you see how he keeps watching. There you go. Enrique's going to close the gap a little more. See how the behavior is changing? Hold right here. Keep forward, Enrique. And pause there. And tap for Buddy. Okay. Now wait a moment. One more tap. Okay. And see how he shifts his position? Now he's more towards you. Then we wait. And then that relaxed panting comes back. So it's differentiating between the anxious panting and the relaxed panting. Relaxed panting tends to be more rhythmic. The anxious panting is got a little bit of a sound to it and is non-rhythmic. It's kind of right? Like it's kind of like all over the place. So once you learn to differentiate between, because it's super subtle, right? That's his 1 on the escalation of 1 to 10. okay? And you want to stop him at 1 because it makes your life and his life easier. Because once he's full-blown reactive, you're going to be higher, okay? And then what can happen is if it's too high, it's such a harsh correction that the dog more so panics and doesn't really logically go through the process of like, oh, mom's disagreeing with my behavior, okay? So that happened because there was a shift in the environment. Bree left and brought a dog in, but he was fine with Dude, okay? And he could have been fine with Dude because he saw him there earlier. Then Enrique came by, and as he was passing around, he was just like, oh, okay, like there's just this dog, there's nothing going on here. So when there's that shift, those are things that you want to be aware of, because when you're outside, things are just going to happen all over the place. So you're just becoming more aware of your environment and then Buddy's response to changes within the environment. And that puts you a step ahead. Okay? Questions so far? Go ahead and do a couple more laps, Enrique, and you'll close the gap some more. Go ahead and reverse it so that Dude is on the inside. Right. So now Dude's starting to show a little interest in Buddy here. Right. Good. Do one more walk around. Enrique, I'll go ahead and come over here and come to a stop.
All right.
Thinking about, you could put them away. Thank you. So here, things that I was looking for is, I don't know if you heard towards the end when he got in closer, there was a change. You know what that change was? Because if there was a nervous panting, what would I have told you to do? Yeah, right. What else?
Looked away.
He was looking away. Looking away is good. Okay. So we have 4 responses to things. We have fight, flight, avoidance, submission. Okay. Reactivity would be categorized within that fight response. Okay. Any kind of forward type confrontational thing, lip curling, growling, showing teeth, obviously lunging and barking, all in my book classified as fight response because you're using confrontational measures to stop something, right? So what we did earlier by the structure, the discipline, not letting them escalate was saying, or essentially saying like, don't become reactive, okay? So that leaves us with 3 responses. That leaves flight, avoidance, submission, okay? So then earlier when Pablo came in and he was like this, and he started to escalate, and you tapped him 2 to 3 times, he went from going like this to like this, okay? And I didn't care that he looked at you, okay? He's just doing that right now because he's that's his, he's being extra cautious because of what we just did. All I cared about is that he stopped being so stimulated by Pablo, okay? So then he chooses, okay, well, he's like, if I can't look at the dog, I'm gonna just choose this instead. And then everything stopped. So then he goes, oh, I do have an option when I see something. It's just not these options, okay? So then that leaves us with avoidance and submission. And avoidance is, like let's say you go to the store and you see someone you don't want to talk to them, what would you do? Go down a different aisle, right? You avoid them. So that's what we're teaching them. So like we have a client right now whose dog has reactivity, and by I think it was the second class, he would see, he did. Sorry, he did real quick. He would see a dog and then he would go like this and put his head behind the owner's leg. And then the dog would pass, and then he'd come out like this. Fine, okay? Anything but lunging and barking, okay? And that may change. It may come to the point where he's like, you know what, what happens if I don't avoid? Because nothing's happened so far. Dog passes. Oh, all right, cool. Don't need to fight, don't need to try to run, and don't need to try to avoid it. Like, it's perfectly fine, okay? And that's what we're trying to do here, but in order to get him to produce that new pattern, you have to eliminate certain options. That's why when he was putting the brakes on you, you're doing very good. Most people stop. almost everybody stops and their dog stops. You didn't. You just kept going, you kept tapping. So he was going, don't want to do it, Mom. And you're like, well, you're going to have to, because this is not going right. Then he popped forward. He's like, all right, cool. Well, that's not an option. And he's going to keep trying it, okay? And you might find he tries it more at home because of the environment, more stressful. It's normal. What I would suggest is you keep moving forward. I would slow down my pace a little bit to allow you to get more so the taps to make him move. And if it becomes too much of a problem, like you can try it on the grass. I don't think it's going to be an issue. But, you know, unfortunately, we live, you may get people who may comment, okay, just to make you aware. Because they're like, oh my God, why are you dragging your dog? Obviously, they don't know what you're dealing with. So don't worry about them. Just keep doing what you're doing. We're taking our time, you know, just the number if needed. So like if you're moving and he was doing that resistance and you did the 3-tap rule on 15, 18, right? 3-tap rule. Keep every three taps, I'm bumping it until you see him move. And he goes forward, and then you look, 26, right? There's your reference point. Because you're trying to break that mental state. And there was one that happened actually earlier where he was resisting towards the very end. And as soon as you broke him through it, he just ran to your leg and was great. Because once you break resistance, it allows the brain to take in and accept what you're trying to teach. But if it's like a human. If a human's just like, I'm not going to listen to you, you can talk to them as much as you want, they're not going to listen. Right? They're going to walk away like, I don't know what they're talking about. Right? You have to get them, that's why we have like, persuasion. But that takes a certain way of talking stuff. But dogs, we don't have verbal persuasion. We just have physical persuasion. Okay? So, questions about any of this stuff so far? Your homework for this week. Your homework for this week is just this exercise. Okay? Anytime you walk out. If you take them out and it's just a quick potty break, I would still suggest you have them on the collar. Because I've had so many clients go like, Jesse, I took my dog out and I put the collar on and it was hell. Right? And I go, yeah. Even if it's just a quick potty break, just out, have the collar, because you'd rather be able to stop things than not be able to. Shorter walks work better for dogs, so like 15, 20 minutes when you're doing this process. Because every time we would stop and I would talk, he's like literally processing everything that's happening within what just happened. Okay? So, 20-minute walk for the morning, afternoon, before bed or whatever, works really well. Otherwise, if one day all you have is a solid hour, it's perfectly fine because it's not redundant. As long as Buddy is here, okay, you can keep going forward. You're only doing those abrupt turns when Buddy is passing you. Okay, so if he's doing great, you're like, wow, he's walking really well, keep moving forward. Okay? Some things that you can do to check if he's paying attention is change your speed. Okay, so whenever you're going to come to a stop and whenever you're going to come to a turn, just slow down always. And this is going to be a forever thing, but I want you to get in the habit of slowing down. That's why when you're going that way, I would say slow turn to allow Buddy to catch on to what you're doing. Now, let's say you're walking and you're going to make a right turn and you slow down till you're ready for that turn and Buddy keeps going. You would then just turn tap because you lost it. Okay, so it's kind of like driving. We slow before we stop and we slow before we turn. It's the same thing for this guy. For this week, I just care that you slow down. Okay, he doesn't need to be perfect, but it should be like if you come to a stop and he stops, but he's like a little bit right here, like that's okay for now. We're going to tighten all this stuff as we go along. Okay. If you're out and you see something that he may become reactive to, the more you start to confront things now, the more progress you're going to make quickly. Okay, so because now you have the tools to disrupt him. So if I step aside and I'm within the curb, I shorten my leash, I'm watching Buddy here, and you're looking for those changes in behavior. The ones that I saw today are just the changes in the rhythm of his breathing, with that kind of anxious whine, mouth puckering, where it looks like they want to bark, but they're not barking, and then the obvious like barking and stuff. If you see him close his mouth, that's just tension. Okay. Or lip licking, it's fine. Those are just signals of what's happening doesn't make him feel good. Then I care about what does he do in response. Okay? If it's followed by a lunge and a bark, then you would kick in. You always want to pull straight up. Okay? Don't do back, don't do up and back. Up. Up, and you'll be tapping until you feel him settle. And like you literally feel him be like super intense. And as you're tapping, he just does this. He starts to melt, okay? And you'll learn to kind of get used to that feeling, so then you recognize when to relax. Because once he settles, you have to settle with him. If you stay tense, you're keeping him within that moment, and it's going to build frustration, okay? So we settle him, let it pass, wait a moment, then we start moving again, and everything turns on. We're not going to say any words this week, so there's no heel. What's going to trigger the exercise is the tap. So what I would suggest is you come out, start off with that potty break, get that out the way, and then start your, like if he's pottying here, you go like this and then tap, so he goes straight to that leg. And now it would turn on, and everything would begin. If you decide to give him another break at the end of the walk, you simply come to a stop. Ideally, you stop together. You wait a moment, buddy, break, and then break means your job is done. He can pee, poop, roll around, sniff the grass, smoke a cigarette, I don't care. He's on his own time, okay? And then we're gonna walk back home. If you want to trigger it again, you would simply start moving, tap, to bring him back to that left side, okay? But we're not using any formal heel word at this moment, because I want to make sure that you're using the remote as much as possible, okay? If everything's going well, you should start to see a decline in his behavior, the anxiousness, the barking, the activity. What's going to dictate all this is, of course, your number. So after he's done with his potty stuff, then you find that working level. Remember, you're looking for a bigger response. So like earlier when you tapped him again, he got closer to you, okay? So that's the big response. So now that's your baseline working number, and then you'll just alter it according to how he's taking the walk. So let's say you're at 24 at home, and every day it's 100 turns. We're not making any progress. We're static now, okay? So then I go, okay, 24 is 100 turns, then I go to 27. Then 27 becomes 50 turns, it's still 50 turns every walk. Then I go, okay, 30. Then it becomes 10 turns every walk. So I'm getting closer, but it's still 10 turns every walk. Then I go 33. Then it becomes 1 turn every other walk. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good gap, so I keep 33. Then it just gets better, and you start to notice, like, wow, there's a bigger gap between every time I have to correct it. Then that's more so your working number, okay? Things should always be going down. It should always be progressive. If it's not progressing, we're doing something incorrectly. Or either not going high enough, or people are choking back on the leash because of old habit. You have to give trust, you have to give relaxation, because you get what you give, okay? So if you're tense, you get tension. If you're relaxed, if he becomes tense, it's not because of you, it's because of the environment. But now you can influence, because now you're giving relaxation back, okay? Questions for me? Good. I don't know if you noticed he got quieter too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that quiet is good. It's all discipline stuff. So you have your homework for the week. Maria should have given you like my email. So if you have any training questions, email's always best, okay? If you're struggling with something I suggest for clients to do is if you can catch it on video and send it to me, and like just say what you're doing, like Jesse, I'm tapping at 25 or something, and he's not phased. I can see it and know what's incorrect. Otherwise, if you feel like you're making great progress, just keep practicing, and then we'll see you in a week. And then if you need to refer to your video and stuff, you just go to our YouTube channel. I tell people just to subscribe, and I think they send their notifications. Okay, cool. So then you'll just see Buddy, lesson 1, and then this way you can go to your video and then pick up anything you've missed. If you're struggling with anything, or maybe the whole step-aside thing isn't too clear for you, just let me know, and then I have a couple of client videos that I can send you where they're actively doing it, so you get to see what it looks like. Okay? Now, when you head out here, because he's been under stress, he's probably just going to forge out. We're going to forgive that for now, but expect when you're heading home, because now there's discipline to things, he's going to be like, I really want to go home. That is a prime time to reinforce this, because it doesn't matter how you feel about it, you have to be here, okay? So if you see that happen, what I suggest is you spend 5 minutes walking away from home, and then 15 minutes walking back home, so that you can reinforce this. Even though you're super anxious and you're super stressed and you want to run home, you have to be here. And then you would just override that through power. Okay? Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
How you feeling?
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, just let me know if anything comes up. Otherwise, I think the only thing may just be the number in your environment, and then the harness thing, just working those two things together. But I think it'll be fine. Okay? Good job. Yep.